got together right after the crisis to think about ways to, okay, we have now 400 people in this group. How can we help? And we're not doctors, we're not healthcare experts. So how can we use our knowledge to help people that are really impacted? So that was the purpose, and the group keeps having these discussions. We're helping individuals and startups and to go through this. So it's an experiment, Richard, an agile experiment.
Right. Well, good.
Okay, so we are going, I see Jap has joined, nice. So let's get started. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today with a very, very special guest. Richard Pharro, you have seen his bio and what he's done. I've shared that with you already. Today is Thursday, so we have a guest speaker. The idea is to have a nice time, learn from Richard, asking questions about his views, about the future of education, certification. There's nobody that knows more about that than Richard. So Richard, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Antonio, and welcome to everybody.
Richard, where are you calling from? Where are you based?
I'm in the UK. I'm in a place just outside of Hampton Court. So if I looked out of the window, I could probably see Hampton Court Palace. So I'm close to the Thames in Surrey. Nice.
Can you just, as introduction, Richard, people have seen your bio, but tell us a bit about your career. And I think you study engineering, you went into project management. And also, what did you want to be when you were a teenager? Did you want to be leading APMG? And so just a bit about you.
So when I was a teenager, I wanted to be an engineer. So I wanted to be an engineer because I thought as an engineer, I could travel the world. And I could travel the world and build things. So I trained and graduated as a civil engineer. And I started work in the UK with a consultancy firm. And then we hit a recession. This would have been in 1970s. For some people on the call, there were the 1900s. There was a decade before this one. And the firm I worked for had a lot of work in the Middle East and a lot of work in the Far East. So when I was about 22 or 23, I went out to Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates, where I was working out there on Sharjah International Airport. And this was before Dubai became a world city. This was when the dhows were in the creek, the souk was there, and it was a true image of Arabia. When I was in the UK, my first project as an engineer was the underground tunnel to Heathrow. So I was one of the engineers driving the Piccadilly line extension into Heathrow Airport. And then there was an airport in the Middle East. And then when I came back, I joined the development team in London Docklands as part of their project management team. And depending on your point of view, we either ruined East London or we converted East London into the city on the Thames. So that was my early career.
So you did what you were looking for.
Well, I did, but having gone to the Middle East for 4 years, all the wise people said, if you want to get on, you have to go back and work in the UK. Otherwise, you become an itinerant engineer, just traveling around from projects to projects. And you lose that opportunity necessary to progress as a professional. But you move from an environment where you had a lot of responsibility, you had a lot of freedom, and then you come back into the regimented control of a consulting company, which was quite a shock when I came back.
And then you started to volunteer for.
Yes. Yeah, well, when I was young, working in London Docklands, I read an article by a very famous guy, probably someone I would class as a mentor, a guy called Eric Gabriel. And Eric Gabriel was one of the instigators of setting up the Association of Project Management in the UK, and was probably one of the, if you use the phrase, fathers of structured project management in the UK. So I wrote to Eric and told him his ideas were wrong, that he needed to think again. And this was the Association of Project Management was setting up a certification program. So Eric invited me to join him and do it. And that introduced me to the Association of Project Management in the UK. While I was with London Docklands, we were project and program managers. So it's my first use of program management when we were, programs would cover environmental projects, construction projects, education projects, society projects. And so it's quite a good introduction. So I then got involved with the Association of Project Management to develop the certification program and the body of knowledge. And that would have been somewhere in the late 1980s.
At that time, were you familiar with PMI already?
Oh, very familiar with PMI. PMI, I was a member of PMI and a member of APM. And around that time, I joined the board of IPMA, which was the International Project Management Association. And we had a meeting with PMI to develop a single body of knowledge and a single certification program. And the discussions we had with a small group of people were very positive, but for reasons best known to others, that joint venture, that joint endeavor never took off. Had that taken off, maybe there would have just been a single body of knowledge, a single accreditation program, and maybe then a single profession of project management globally, rather than the different approaches that have been adopted by IPMA and the various membership bodies, and indeed PMI. So very familiar with them.
I didn't know that meeting took place, and it could have changed the history of the world.
It possibly could have. You should talk to Bill Duncan. I think Bill Duncan was present at the meeting from the PMI viewpoint. I
know Bill very well. Wow, okay. Thank you. I didn't know that, Richard. And then you moved into, when was the APMG? When did you create?
So when I was with APM, and I was on the board of APM, and APM at the time was quite a small organization, maybe 1,000 members. So this is around the early 1990s. And we needed to generate some revenue. So we decided to set up a trading company, and some people put in ideas. And once again, I talked myself into something by saying, don't we think that the person who runs this should be a member? So the board said, well, okay, then you want to run it, you put in a proposal. So I put in a proposal. We set up a joint venture between the association and myself, and that was in 1993. And that took a lot of effort because APM was a registered charity, so it needed to have agreement with the Charity Commission. And so APM Group started in October 1993 as me as the first and only employee.
Wow. Can you explain a bit more about APMG, Richard? Some people here are more familiar with PMI, so can you just
APMG, so APM Group started life as the trading arm of the Association for Project Management in the UK. And because the association represented individuals and corporates, there was always a challenge about what could APM Group do. So we did a little bit of training, but not much. And then one day someone rang me and said, the government wants some help with a project management methodology called Prince 2. So there I was on my own in an office, in a room, in an office. And I put in a proposal to take Prince 2 and develop a certification program and to accredit training companies to grow the product. And it took about 2 years to have the proposal agreed because it moved between some government departments. Some of the partners I'd involved in the early days walked out, didn't want to do it. But that was how APM Group really got started. We had a contract with, at the time, the Office of Government Commerce, not the Office, no, it was CCTA, the Government Central Telecommunication Agency, to develop qualification and training programs for Prince 2. Now, clearly, because it was Prince 2, there was a Prince.
Yeah.
It's never Prince 1, but there was a Prince. So I had to convince these people who were delivering Prince courses that they should pay me a fee to be accredited and that they would buy exams.
Wow.
And that was quite an interesting series of negotiations with an established community to try to buy into a new concept. But we clearly were successful. We started, and Prince then became, after about 10 years, it became an overnight success. So it was hard work, but we grew Prince 2. From the basis of Prince 2, we then grew a global operation. We translated it into 21 countries, and we added a range of other products to our portfolio. So APM Group, and sorry, in the year 2000, the Association of Project Management wanted to end the relationship. So I bought their shares, and at that point we sought accreditation with the United Kingdom Accreditation Service, because one day someone sat opposite me and said, who accredits the accreditor? So we needed to find someone to accredit us. And that's when our relationship with UCAS started. And that's really when we started to grow quite exponentially, when we had freedom of our own destiny with a range of products. And at that time, APM Group probably employed about 12 people. And now we have a portfolio of 70 products.
Incredible. And so you are one of the fathers of the certification, Prince 2.
Prince, I developed the Prince 2 certification. I was also very instrumental in the original Association for Project Management certification and the original IPMA certification. So yes, wow. I have some experience in certification.
It's an honor to, I didn't know that, Richard, but I'm impressed. It's very great to have you here with us to talk about that. How did that happen? How did the big switch, the big boom happen? When was it? Can you say what? Can you?
I think what happened, and yeah, the conversations I had with those early training companies when I spoke about an exam. So my business case for Prince 2 was that we would run 500 exams in a year. And everybody fell about laughing and saying, you'll never do 500 exams in Prince 2. The training companies, the large training companies said, this isn't going to fly. But we're the largest project management training company in the UK, so we've got to be on board. And the thing that switched it was an individual, a guy called Tony Levine, said, if I become accredited by you, then I'm assessed to the same standards as the big players. So count me in. And after that, other people came on board. I can remember about 2 months after we started, we had our first order for 10 exams. It was as though Father Christmas had come. And it was the idea of the certification, and then we introduced exams every week so that people could run training courses any time they wanted to, and they could have an exam any week they wanted. And we negotiated with the publisher to have the manual at an affordable price. So the three things that were successful, one was Tony Levine signing on the line.
Yeah.
And therefore encouraging other people. One was actually changing the whole business model to say we'll have an exam delivered to the classroom every week, if you want it. And the other one was an affordable manual. Those were the three things. And then people got behind that, and people then started to buy the qualification and the training.
And how did you get the recognition saying this is valid, this is something that I can hire people based on that credential?
Because it was APMG's business model is to work with people who own intellectual property. So we got our credibility from the fact that Prince 2 was owned by UK government. So it was a UK government product called Prince 2. It was delivered through training companies in the UK initially, but then very rapidly in the Netherlands and in Denmark and Australia. And people knew it was a government endorsed methodology. And I think that's where the credibility came from.
Let me ask a few more questions and then I'll open up for other, but it's just, I have a lot of questions, Richard. Despite all this, well, maybe some numbers, Richard, if you can share with us, how many people have been certified, if you can, on Prince 2 under, when it was under APMG or managing successful programs? Just some numbers, if you could share, just to see.
I can remember we used to have a meeting every year with the training companies. And each year I would ask the question, you know, what do you think the market is doing? And at one of these sessions, somebody said we would run 25,000 exams in a year. And somebody else said it would be 50,000. And I think the following year we ran 100,000. So at its peak, I think the maximum number of Prince 2 exams we ran in any one year was something around 125 to 130,000 exams. And I think in the period that we were responsible for Prince 2 was always owned by UK government, is still owned by UK government in a joint venture between them and a company called Capita, through a joint venture called Axelos. So it still exists and it is still a very popular methodology globally. But I think when we were responsible for it, we probably got to somewhere around 1 million people took a Prince 2 exam somewhere in the world in one of 21 languages.
Wow. Yeah, it's huge. Richard, one question. Despite all these methodologies and training, we're still not great at projects. You see in the London with the tube or the railways, or in Germany, Berlin airport. What is it that goes wrong? We're all prepared now, but why?
Oh, I mean, I think my view is that we usually get the front end wrong. There's not enough time taken on the project brief, the project definition, the right team, the risk analysis, and the budget. And we've known that. Every single project management report since the early reports have always said it's the same basic things that people don't get right. And I don't think we spend enough time, pay enough attention to the people issues. You know, have you got the right people in the room? Have people got the time to do the job? And it's always the same basic problems. Everybody is too busy to get it right at the beginning, but they can always find the time and the resources to fix the problems at the end. And it's all around definition and doing the projects that you want to do and doing them well. And that's my belief. And as I say, I come from a construction background, and you know, I worked on tunnels where you start from two ends and you join in the middle. You know, you don't expect things to go wrong. But other projects, people are happy to accept mistakes and accept things going wrong. It's about definition and the right people.
Yeah. And Agile, Richard, what do you think about Agile?
That's a very difficult question, because I think most projects are always Agile.
Already, yeah.
But I accept that the discipline of Agile is no codified. And I think the key thing is about whether your job and your profession is a project manager, or whether you run projects within your job. So I think the professional project managers have always had an Agile approach. But I think now the concept of Agile coming to people who do occasional projects is quite important for them to realize that you do need to have an iterative process. But I think it's very hard to think that, you know, people that have been running projects for as a career have not been acting in an agile way.
I love the answer, and I fully agree. We were not selling as agile. It has been seen as the opposite of project management, but it's already incorporated in the project management practices.
Yeah, I mean, when we were involved in Prince 2, everyone said Prince 2 was bureaucratic.
Yeah.
It was bureaucratic if you wanted it to be bureaucratic. But what is the difference between a Prince 2 phase and an agile sprint? It's just a word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at the end of the Prince 2 phase, you would stop and you'd have a look, and you then think about what you're going to do. It's really about the people, and it's about an attitude about how you go about things.
Yeah. There is one last question before I open, and what's the future of accreditation and even the education and continuous learning, and how do you see it before and well now with the COVID crisis? How do you see it going up or down or?
Well, I think it's very hard to answer that based on the last month.
Yeah.
I mean, in the last month, you know, many parts of the world have stopped. I think certification and qualifications are important, because I think it is about the evidence that people know something or people can do something. I think the big challenge we have, though, is the price-value equation. And these days, because of the rise of the internet, there's a lot of stuff that is available for free. So trying to justify the value of going on a training course and a certification becomes more and more difficult because there's so much competition out there. But I think the importance of being able to demonstrate that one is knowledgeable or one is competent, and we've never really cracked the competence argument, where how do you assess someone's ability to do something rather than assess somebody's knowledge of something. And I think that is probably the next frontier, maybe with technology and being able to use simulations and have online assessments, one can get closer to assessing competence and capability rather than knowledge. But if people are now going to be, when I went to work, I fully expected to work for maybe 2 or 3 companies in my lifetime. These days, I would imagine most people expect to work for 2 or 3 companies in a year, or have a portfolio career from a very early age. How do you demonstrate your knowledge and your understanding and your skills and your competencies if you don't have certifications? Until you get to your age or my age, when someone knows you. But for a young person in their career, I do believe that they have huge value in getting you to the interview and enable you to start work where you have the opportunity to demonstrate your capability. Because very few organizations will give people that opportunity unless they pass some form of assessment criteria.
Yeah, so the future, I can just agree. I would not hire somebody for a PM role without any Prince 2 or PMP certification. It doesn't guarantee that they will be excellent at the job, but it tells me they care, they've studied, they have certain basics that we can start working with them.
Yeah. When they've been working for you for a while and they're no good, you may ask them to leave.
Yeah.
So you do want them to prove they know this stuff and can apply it. But yeah.
Let me go now to more questions here. There's a few. So I'll just pass you the mic. There's one question from Mohamed Abdelassine. Where are you, Mohamed? Can you turn your camera on and ask the question to Richard? Mohamed, please.
Oh, hi guys. I'm from UAE, Abu Dhabi. I was asking about the most reputable certification at APMG. What's trending now? Is it the Agile or the P3O, the MSP? So what's the most trending there?
I think, hi and welcome from Abu Dhabi. I went to Abu Dhabi once, many years ago, and I'm sure I wouldn't recognize it at all if I came back now.
Yeah, totally changed.
I suppose there's a number of things trending. Change management is a very popular certification, as I think most people now recognize that whatever they do, they are involved in change. So either traditional change management or agile change management is a very hot topic. Agile project management and agile business analysis are also very popular products in the field, and both of those I think are in the field of projects and programs. The one that's doing very well, but I wouldn't necessarily say it is trending, is a product we developed with the World Bank on public-private partnerships. And I think as we come out of COVID and people are trying to do a lot of development work, the idea of that relationship between the public and the private sector will become more important. And the PPP program allows people to understand the basics and deals with the relationship between the promoter and the contractor in a PPP program. So that's very popular. And the one product that, or certification also that is going very well is business relationship management. So we run a certification on behalf of the BRM Institute in the US, and the role of the BRM, the business relationship manager within an organization, providing that linkage between the business and the delivery arm, usually in IT, is now becoming very key. And again, all of those I think are relevant whether one's in programs or projects. So those would be probably the four things that I think are probably growing the fastest.
Thank you, Richard. One question from Hermenegildo Lemos. Can you, Hermenegildo, open your screen? Where are you calling from? And what's your question?
Okay. Hi, good morning, everybody. So I'm calling from Angola. I'm PMP. I work in past offshore in operation for Total. After that, I work for Engineering Technique, French company. My question is, I'm a control system engineer. My question is about, maybe I got answer just before, is about the approach from Prince 2 and the discipline agile. And I think the answer is, I got it just before. My question was, I think Antonio already discussed, my question was already, the answer was done.
Oh, right. Okay, excellent.
Thank you, Hermenegildo.
Thank you.
Stay safe in Angola.
Thank you.
There's a question from Sihan Yaman. Where are you calling? Sihan, can you open your screen?
Yes, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I want to know his opinion about SIP certification.
Ah.
Where are you coming from, Sihan?
Just a second. I am calling from Turkey.
Okay.
What do I think about? This is the Strategy Institute.
Yes.
Strategy Implementation Institute certification.
Yes.
Well, I declare an interest because clearly we are working with Antonio on that certification. And so we are responsible for the quality of the qualifications, the exams, and rolling them out. The reason we decided to get involved, because I think it comes back to the trend we're seeing. Yeah. Because I think we have these problems with projects because we're not very good at definition up front. And if you read some things that's coming in on chat, it's about we're not doing the people things right. One of the big issues organizations have about strategy is you might be able to write a great strategy document, but can you execute? Yeah, how well can you execute on it? So, yeah, Antonia has come up with the concept of helping people understand how to not write strategy, but how to take and execute and implement the strategy. So I think it has a big future. So I think if you're a project manager in a business and you're trying to implement something, are you implementing a project? Are you implementing strategy? Where's that line between project and strategy? I think all of these things start to merge in some places, but I can see the need to be able to take something and execute on it is very important. I quite like the approach that Antonio has taken to the training program and the way he's brought together white papers, case studies, a little bit of text and education over a period of time. So I think it will be an interesting certification to see how it grows over the next couple of years.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Sina, for the question, and thank you for the trust, Richard. It's great to have somebody like you supporting the strategy implementation, competencies, and certification to upskill a bit project management practices, merging with the agile part as well. So I'm very excited about that too. So thank you, Richard. There's a question from Debesis Sengupta. Where are you calling from, Debesis? Can you show us? Hello, Debesis. Or maybe I'm not spelling wrong the name. Anyway, I go to the next one. Eduardo Ferdanini. Eduardo. Are you there, Eduardo?
Yes, hello. Hello. I'm here from Chile. Nice to meet you, to everybody. I'm really glad to be here with you. And I really agree with your answer, Richard, because I'm PMP too, and I work close to Construction Industry Institute, and I know upfront planning is very important if you want to have a construction success. My question is, what is your vision is the impact of the new trend on artificial intelligence to try to help to improve the upfront planning?
I think to improve upfront planning, this might be something where maybe some of the other certifications, maybe it is around the strategy implementation, maybe it's around the business relationship management institute. It's about getting the right people, the decision makers, to provide the resources, the time and the talent to get the planning right. Now, I don't know how you do that, but if you look at some of the most successful companies in the world, so I can't believe an oil company just doesn't put in the effort before it builds an oil platform or what have you, because their whole job is projects. And I think what we struggle with is there are organizations that are very project orientated and I think do it well. There are other organizations that use projects and don't understand the importance and the value of that upfront planning. And maybe within the professional project management, we need to stop saying a project is a project is a project, and start to focus on the projects that are delivered by professional project organizations used in professional project managers who probably have a pretty good success rate, and people that are doing projects within a business without that allocation of time, without that allocation of resource, and the right people in the room at the outset to do the work. Because, I think that is one of our biggest problems as a profession, is that we haven't really differentiated between I am a project manager and that's what I do for a living, and I do projects as part of my job. And I haven't really seen the research that separates it out. But organizations like, Major Projects Association in the UK, there's a Major Projects Group in Australia, those organizations, their bread and butter is delivering successful projects. And they put in the time and effort. Okay, things go wrong. Clearly things always go wrong, but stuff happens. But I think it is about convincing people to put in the time and effort. I mean, I was sacked from one project
Oh,
because I was sacked from a project because I was charged with building a college, a school in London Docklands. And it had to open before terms started. And the only way we could do it was to let two separate contracts, one for the foundations and one for the superstructure, which is highly risky because clearly if you don't get the foundations in the right place, you have a problem. So I went to the finance director and the development director of the client and said they had to make this decision. And they said it wasn't their decision, I had to go somewhere else. And I said to them, if you don't make the decision, I will put a report into the board that this will not open on time because you didn't make a decision. So they made a decision. The tenders came in below budget, and the day after the tenders came in below budget, my contract was terminated.
wow.
But you have to force people to make the decisions when you need the decisions to be made. Otherwise, you know, it's not going to happen. And do you want to be responsible for a failed project, or do you want to move on to something where you can make a difference?
Thank you. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, Richard. Great question. And I can totally relate, Richard. The role of the project manager, it's evolving more into, stepping up and forcing some kind of decision and standing by the decisions and actually, not just following orders, but taking the step to lead actually these projects like you did.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Yeah, the project charter, if you get the charter right and the right people sign up to it, then you should be okay. But if you can't get somebody to sign up to the project charter, how are you ever going to get the resources and the support you need to deliver the project?
Yeah. Okay, next question, Lourdes Medina. Where are you calling from and what's your question for Richard?
Hi, I'm calling from Venezuela. Do you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Yes. Well, it's about the amount of information that we have already in internet, but not only the formal information we have for several frameworks, methodology, and as PMO, we need to have the ability to coordinate and all the frameworks. I believe that every project cannot be agile. Every project cannot be waterfall. And as a PMO, we have to articulate very well what kind of frameworks to use. So in my experience, since I'm used Prince2 as certificated as well as PMP, I would like too much the Prince2 for the product development approach. However, I think that we need to combine it with Scrum, with some other tools or techniques that also are in the PM book, for example. So what do you think about this articulation of different frameworks?
I have another, I need again to sort of declare an interest. There's a methodology on the web called Praxis Framework. And Praxis Framework has been developed by a community of people that have taken most of the best practices and consolidated it into some single advice. So, you may like to have a look at praxisframework.com, see if there's anything there that is of interest. But I think you make an interesting point, and I think this is where you need the experience, because I think you can combine and bring these things together, providing you understand them. And then you can meld, you can take Prince2 and you can use some elements of Prince2. You can use some of the techniques maybe in Scrum, like a daily stand-up or time boxing and Prince2 stages. What's the real difference? But I think the challenge is that unless you're working with a group of people for a longer period of time, it's how much time can you spend to get people to come up to speed with whatever your preferred approach or methodology is. And I think that's why people like the standard methodologies, because you can train people in a standard methodology, and then your startup phase in a project is much quicker, much more effective than if you're always trying to merge things.
Thank you, Richard. And I see Estelle has typed the website on the chat. And hi, Estelle. Estelle is working with Richard, and we're doing quite a lot of work on promoting the strategy implementation professional certification. Thank you, Estelle, for being with us. And thank you, Lourdes, for the question. Let's move next to Antoine. Antoine, I see you're very active here. So just come with the question, and then Sadi, I'll go to you, Sadi. And then Sadi, I'll go to you.
Hi, Antonio. First of all, congratulations on your Harvard deal that you made. I read it this week, and I can't wait to see that first article coming out.
Thank you, Antoine.
If you need a co-writer,
thank you.
You know.
Where are you calling from?
Richard, the question that I have, I'm calling from United Arab Emirates, same as Wael, from Dubai, and banging my head against the wall at the moment because many of the projects here in the region simply have been frozen. And I think we all experience the same thing. So it gives us a lot of time to catch up on reading, certifications, and you get the thing. There's a few things that you said, Rich, that kind of bugged my head. One question that I had was, you said a lot of things are available on the internet. You know, a lot of things are available for free on the internet. And I know you were leading the way to a certain point. What I am struggling with is literally the attention span of the average millennial currently coming out of, you know, the current universities and those things, because they are distracted within 2-3 minutes. How is your vision that we could bring them back to literally spend a little more time, you know, going into the deeper knowledge points of a certification program, instead of let them click through all these little movies on the internet and then finally think that they can make an exam? What's your view on this? I'm really curious about that.
I have mixed views on that, because my generation, we got a degree and then we were trained. So I wasn't allowed to do it. I can remember I spent 6 months being trained by draftsmen how to draw with a pencil on a drawing board. Right? So I agree with you. There are too many things that people click through, and they've looked at something for an hour, pass 10-question test and think they're an expert. I think it comes back to people who got to see project management as a deep career. And therefore, if it is a degree, if it is a career, you have to spend the time to understand, look at the different methodologies, look at the other things that are around, be able to pick and choose. Yeah. As you get experience, you know that you don't have to do everything, but you know what you can drop. You know what you can get away with. I don't know how you do it, because the world is moving towards more of a, I described it to someone the other day as a tapas bar. You know, I'll just have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and now I know everything, rather than actually look at a menu and actually study it and learn what you have to do. I don't know the answer to that. I do take your point, though. There's a lot of stuff on the internet that you don't know how good it is. And I think that's where you do need the professional bodies. You need the people who are curating stuff, so you know it has a pedigree, you know that it has value, or they're writing for the Harvard Business Review, whatever it is, rather than you just find some stuff on the website. But I think it is a huge challenge, because, as you say, people are expecting to start work in the January and be in the board of directors by the December. Challenge.
It comes, I think, also connecting to what you're saying, is that what I've experienced is the amount of project failure is going up massively, basically of the underskilled people that are running them. It's exactly what you said. You know, are you a project manager or somebody who manages projects? And I think we have touched based on 2 or 3 root causes. One of them is, of course, people not spending enough time, deeply understand the desires of what the benefits of a project should be, what the product should be at the end. As an example, I wrote that everybody here in this group draw a dog. Your assignment is draw a dog, and you will see 41 different dogs. If you give more information, exactly. So I always use that story when I start fixing a project. And the other thing is, of course, learning. And the third thing, and that literally hooks into, I'm sneaking in another question, Antonio. The hooks into, what do you think is the cultural influence on the positioning of a project manager? And what's your experience in that? Because from my experience, I know that a project manager's role in Europe is definitely different than a project manager here in the Middle East. So what's your view on that?
I think I think cultural issues clearly are very important. I don't think it's any different if you're a project manager than if you're a general manager. I think it is about that understanding of the value you bring to the organization or the project and the relationship you then have with the sponsoring organization. And I think I was offered a project once where I was told that the client's representative would be a certain individual. And I knew that if that individual was the client's representative, they would micromanage everything. I didn't even go for the interview because it wasn't going to work. Now, the person that got it went on to do a fabulous job and go on to accumulate an awful lot of riches in terms of more and more interesting work to do. But we were different characters. He was happy in that position. I wouldn't have been happy in that position. And I think a lot of it simply comes down to who are you representing? Who are you going to work with? What is what are you accountable for? And unless you can get that, your appointment letter, whatever it is, that is clearly laid out, and so you can deliver what you're accountable for, why would you take the role? We need to be fair to ourselves and say, I'm not prepared to do this. It doesn't work for me. And okay, culture is important about, whether you are, because you never ever see people promoting themselves as junior project managers, but there's a lot of junior project managers. Most people want to be the senior project manager. But whatever culture is, if that's the job you're appointed to do, can you work with the organization? Can you deliver it? And you have clear terms of reference. Again, it comes back to when you started off, clear terms of reference. What's your target? What are you going to measure? You have the authority to deliver it. And if you have that, then you should be able to handle it regardless of culture. Would be my opinion.
Thank you, Antoine. Thank you, Richard. I will try to get 2 more questions. Like to finish on time as usual. Sadi and then Jorge Enrique, I think you had a good question there. Well, they're all good questions. It's just too much. Sadi.
Hello, hi Antonio, how are you? Hi Richard, hi everybody. Yeah, I have a question about sponsors. It's rare when you find a sponsor who comes from a project management discipline background, somebody who knows what keeps project managers awake at night and how to provide the right support for them. Most of them come from maybe financial, MBA, top management, C-level, and they don't know a lot about project management. And you already said, once people are at a certain age, they don't look for certification. And we badly need these people to know how to sponsor. Okay, there was something in the discussion that spoke about providing the resources or making the decision. Okay, so what's your advice or your opinion on getting sponsors to actually sponsor in the right time?
I agree with you totally. You can't get a sponsor to do a certification unless you are the sponsor's boss. So We ran a program in the UK for a government department where the senior person in the government department wanted all their program managers to take a certification in project sponsorship. They hated, they were happy with doing the course, but they didn't want the assessment. I think it comes down to, if the sponsor hasn't got the time to devote to the project that you're delivering, that you need to try to agree with them terms of reference and the key decisions that they need to make. And you have to work with them so they can become a better sponsor. Because at the end of the day, they've got a corporate responsibility to deliver something. So it comes back, as you know, lots of people have been sort of saying in the chat, that it comes back to that team, the right dynamics, shared ownership, shared responsibility, and taking the work of the sponsor, leaving the sponsor to develop or make the decisions based on good advice from you and the project team. Yeah, but if you can't get a sponsor to make decisions and you can't deliver the project in accordance with the project plan and the project mandate that you have, you're going to fail. So why would you be in a role where you can't possibly succeed? You know, you would need to escalate that to whoever is the right person to escalate it to. Now, I'm not preaching anarchy, but a lot of this is within our own hands. I have a manager who works for me, and she says to me, Richard, you can have whatever you want. Tell me the priority, but you can't have everything. And it's very simple. As her sponsor, I make the decision on priority. She delivers. But she doesn't try to do everything. She's worked out that the answer is prioritization. The answer is I make the decisions. She executes the decisions very, very effectively. But she doesn't take any of the risk about what is the priority. And a lot of it's in our own hands. We have to stand up and say to the sponsor, this is your role on this project. How much of that do you want to keep for yourself, and how much do you want me to help and do with?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Sadi. Sadi, Richard is one of our key partners with this strategy implementation for the Middle East. It's
Nice to meet you, Richard.
Good, nice to meet you.
And I wanted to go to Enrique. Let me see.
Hello. Hi.
Eduardo.
Hi.
No, Enrique, sí. Go.
Hi, Richard. Hi, Antonio. Hola. My name is Jorge Enriquez. I am from Bolivia, but I am currently based in London. I'm extremely excited about the strategy certification because I'm studying the strategic management of projects program here at University College London. So everything that you have mentioned, I already studied in my MSc, and I'm looking forward to interact with you, Antonio, about this further later down the line. So Richard, my question is, you know, I arrived in the UK in September. I'm a PMP holder. And of course, Prince 2 is of utmost importance here in the British market, specifically in London, if I'm looking for a job, right? And you already mentioned that that having the Prince 2 certification would actually help and boost my marketability as an employee, right? But let's put that aside for a second. What would be the advantage for me as a professional and as a PMP holder to get the Prince 2 certification? Is there a way in which the PMP certification and the Prince 2 join together actually boost the other's weaknesses and strengths? Is there like a balancing act between them both from a professional point of view in your experience?
I think there is. I mean, first off, Prince 2 is a project management methodology. So it really talks about the process of projects, project management. Yeah, the PMP is much broader, goes much more into leadership, goes much more into the team issues, goes into the detailed planning. So within Prince 2, apart from product-based planning, it doesn't really talk much about planning techniques. So I think they are very different. They are complementary, but the problem is they use different language. So, you know, if you study both of them, and I'm just using as an example, I don't know if this is true. One would talk about a project director and another would talk about the project sponsor, but their roles are the same. So if you've got the experiences you have with PMP and you looked at, say, the Prince 2 manual or some of the Prince 2 books that are out there, and you related your knowledge of project management within PMI against the Prince 2 roles and responsibilities, I think you would come to understand it much more quickly than you think. But they are complementary, but they do different things. There's not much, there isn't much crossover between them. And I think your answer's right. I mean, someone's asked on one of the chat, what's the best qualification? The answer is it depends. What is the methodology used by your organization? What market are you working in? I mentioned, I worked in construction initially. There wasn't a construction project management methodology. There was construction management. And you just learned how to run projects as part of becoming an engineer. Whereas now we have these codified methodologies that we all study and we take qualifications in, but we also have to apply those with the interpersonal skills and human touch. But if you look at them, I think you'll find they're complementary. There's not much overlap.
Thank you, Jorge Enrique. And I want to finish here on time. Richard, we could have gone for a few hours. This is the problem with this kind of situations where everybody around the world join us and they have lots to ask, lots to share. I really want to thank you, Richard. One thing that sticks in my mind, we could have one methodology and it didn't happen. So maybe we can try again.
You'll have to find a very young person that can live long enough to deliver that.
But thank you very much, Richard. Really, really, great session. I can see the feedback, lots of questions. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're extremely busy, but truly, really appreciate your insights and our partnership. We're going to make something big here, but thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for inviting me, and thank you to everybody for taking an hour to talk to me and to listen to me, and I hope everyone remains safe and well in these very challenging times. So thank you very much. Goodbye.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care, everybody. We are not having a call on Sunday. This time we're Sunday off, okay? Take it easy and see you next Thursday.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.